Reds fans, our hopes are in a wild card appearance at this point, but those odds are not in the Reds' favor.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? I'm Jeff Carr, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel, the biggest stage in the world in soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com right now to get started. Later on, I'm going to lay out the evaluation of Tejay Antone because he's been better than you think he has. In just a few minutes, I'll tell you why this turnaround from Brady Singer has two different benefits. But we will begin with expectations. The dirty word when it comes to baseball fandom, because we know what they all were coming into this season. They were not barely get by. They were not, let's do what we did last year. They were, let's take a step forward. Let's win the division. Or at the very least, let's be in the division till the end, and then we'll take that wild card and be happy about it. Because quite frankly, we've seen this team grow to some extent for the last 3 years, and we're thinking, all right, it's time. You got Terry Francona. You spent the money on Gino. You spent the money on the bullpen. Let's go. And everything has fallen apart. And I think for me, at least personally, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, I think it's time for the Reds' expectations to change. The expectation should be make it into the wild card. I feel really good about the fact that the Reds won their first series in 6 series. But let's be realistic for a minute. This was their first series win in 6 series, and the last time that they won a series was against the Mets. It was in Flushing, Queens, but this one being at home, you're done with the Mets after this. There's no more Mets on the schedule. And as bad as they have looked, you're not going to see them anymore. The nice thing is they're 3 games back of the wild card, the Reds are right now. And so I think it's time to change the focus to that. They are an astronomical 10 games back of the Brewers. And at this point, it feels like the Reds would have to put together another month of April, and the Brewers would have to have another month of April as well. The Brewers were very mid in the month of April. They weren't horrible, but they were very mid. They might even have to actually be worse than April, and I don't know that that can happen. There's 2 things here that I don't think can happen. I don't know that we see another month like the Reds had in April. And I don't know that we see the Brewers be bad enough for the Reds to somehow make up 10 games on them. That's a long road to hoe, and look, I would love to be wrong, and you might even say this is a little bit of reverse psychology, but I just don't see it happening. And so let's change our focus to the wild card here, but it's not as if I'm saying that this is likely. I really feel like this is something that the Reds need to look at, but it doesn't mean that it's the odds are in their favor. Because even though they're only 3 games back of the wild card, they would have to jump over 5 teams to get into that wild card spot. Let's talk about those 5 teams. Because right now, virtually all of them currently have a season advantage over the Reds. And the Reds would have to win their next series against most of these teams 2 out of 3 just to tie the season series. They got to do a lot more to get ahead. They would have to sweep the Diamondbacks in Arizona in August. The month of August is going to be key here. They would have to sweep the Padres in Cincinnati at the end of August as August turns into September. And they would also have to sweep the Nationals in Washington, or in D.C., in August, because all 3 of these teams have taken 2 out of 3 from the Reds so far this year. Then let's add in the fact that there are 2 division opponents ahead of them, one of them in the Pirates that has a really big advantage, because as it stands, the Reds would have to go 6-1 against Pittsburgh the rest of this season. And the Reds would have to go 7-2 against the Cubs the rest of this season. That is to own the tiebreaker with all of these teams. Remember, last year there was a nice spot where the Reds owned the tiebreaker with the Mets. The Mets are not the team that they're going to be chasing this year. It's clear. if we know anything about the Reds and that this season seems to be missing expectations, the Mets are worse. So you're not going to have the benefit of that team that collapses like the Mets did last year. But that's just talking about, can the Reds earn tiebreakers against all these teams? Because, the Reds could just have better records than all of these teams. But that is to say, they have 9 games against the Cubs, 7 games against the Pirates. You've got 9 games against the Diamondbacks, Padres, and Nationals. So a good chunk of your remaining schedule is against these teams. So it's not like I'm saying that the Reds are more likely to be a wild card team than other teams. I'm saying this seems more likely than catching the Brewers. Because nothing is impossible in baseball. There's still lots of games left, but it seems highly improbable that the Reds catch the Brewers. It's not highly improbable, but it seems a little bit improbable that the Reds make a wild card run. This is what they face. And as much as I am happy about this series win against the Mets, and as much as I love the fact that Sal Stewart had a 3-run bomb and Spencer Steer had a solo shot, and Sal Stewart added another RBI later in this game with an RBI single, and then the bullpen looked better, which we'll talk about Tejay Antone here in a little bit, when Tony Santillan will be baked into that conversation as well. And then Brady Singer looked better, who we'll talk about here in just a minute. All of those things are nice. But they have dug themselves such a hole right now that it's not impossible for them to get out of it, but man, it's going to be real difficult. And this is where the trade deadline is interesting to me, because Major League Baseball has created this system where so many teams are not going to be out of the wild card race by the trade deadline. The trade deadline being August 1st this year, the Reds are still going to have a shot to be in it. And that's going to be the point, though, where you have already faced the rest of your season series with the Padres, the Diamondbacks, not the Padres, you'll be actually facing the Padres when the trade deadline happens, but you will be done with the Nationals and you will be done with the Diamondbacks. And you're going to face a good chunk of your Pirates series the rest of the way as well. But the whole point of this is the Reds are still going to have hopes at the deadline. And I'm going to find it very intriguing how Nick Krall attacks that. Because we've seen what happens when Nick Krall buys. There are needs that this team has. But if he goes out and he finds the equivalent of a Ke'Bryan Hayes deal and calls that a trade deadline day, then it ain't going to happen and it ain't going to work. And the Reds, if that's what they're looking at, the Reds should consider selling. It's too early to say yay or nay on that, but this is such a hole that they have dug themselves into. And they're not playing the Mets anymore. Today, they play the Mets, yes. But after today, no more. Can you sweep the Mets? That'd be awesome. Get one more win closer to 500. But you're still talking about 5 teams that you have to leapfrog. The Washington Nationals right now look really hot. Some things are really starting to come together for that team. And that team is in a situation where you kind of envisioned the Reds back in 2023, 2024. Will the Nationals take that next step? They did just kind of get their own channel, their own regional sports network. So they've got some money. They're in a bigger market than the Reds. There's a chance that they could go out and make some moves. So you're facing that. You're facing the Cubs that are definitely going to make moves. The Pirates have been rumored to at least be kicking the tires on some possible deals. You know that the Padres and A.J. Preller, they're going to do something at the deadline. And the Diamondbacks are getting healthier. They're talking about Corbin Burns returning. This is a tough situation that the Reds are in. So I know for a fact that we will all be a lot more sane if we change our expectations, but I'm not saying that we're changing our expectations to a sure thing because of the way that the Reds have dug themselves into a hole. But you know what? That's a little bit too realistic for me and a little bit too a little bit too glass medium full reality check, let's talk about some fun stuff, because Brady Singer's turnaround is so crucial for two very different reasons. Have you ever noticed how the second you search for something online, ads for that exact thing start following you everywhere? Or maybe you're traveling, trying to access a website, stream a game, or watch content you normally use at home, and suddenly you're hit with that message, this content isn't available in your region. That's why more and more people are turning to Proton VPN. Proton VPN is a secure VPN service designed for people who want more privacy, more security, and more control over how they experience the internet. It helps you keep your online activity private, protects your data on public Wi-Fi, and gives you access to the internet in a way that should work, open, secure, and on your terms, the way that you like them. It's easy to get started. Right now, Proton VPN is offering our listeners 70% off a 2-year plan when you go to protonvpn.com/LockedOnMLB. That's PROTONVPN.com/LockedOnMLB for 70% off your 2-year plan. That's protonvpn.com/LockedOnMLB. Baseball fans on the East Coast know those West Coast road games, man, for your team, they are a lot. Staying up late to watch your team on those games when, say the Reds are playing the Padres, or you got to stay up late to see your team play. And that's why 5-Hour Energy is so clutch, because 5-Hour Energy creates these great portable drinks that have amazing flavors and amazing taste. They get that tasty caffeine boost with it and zero sugar. In fact, they've got this great flavor right now. They've got the cotton candy flavor. I've always loved the taste of cotton candy. But, I mean, come on. We can't have cotton candy every day, right? That's why the cotton candy 5-Hour Energy is such a perfect alternative, because it packs that flavor in a small package, zero sugar, and you get that caffeine boost that you're looking for. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy shots, available online now at 5hourenergy.com or over on Amazon. Thank you for making Locked On Reds your first listen, and thank you for being an everydayer. If you are subscribed to the podcast, you know what it is to be an everydayer. You can also join the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club. If you go to lockedonreds.supercast.com, you can learn more about, $5 a month, $50 for the year, ad-free feed, group chat in a Discord server that you can also chat with other Locked On hosts, other Locked On fans, and things like that, and so much more. And there's also a free week's trial if you join. The link is down in the description of today's episode below. And, everydayers know that I love to be glass half full and very positive with this team, but it just kind of feels like the tea leaves I'm reading tea leaves here, and it's really pointing to a change in at least expectation for us for the rest of the season, barring some sort of just absolutely improbable run, which will be a lot of fun. I feel like the Reds are shooting for a wild card. And Brady Singer is a huge part of those hopes, because we're talking about a dude that even after yesterday is still sporting a 5.3 ERA. He's had some better starts here recently. I mean, we've seen a couple of starts here go 5 innings and keeping the scoreboard relatively clean, putting the Reds in a position to win, albeit you'd like to see him go 6 innings, but still, we're talking about a dude who's pitching better. It's not pitching good, but he's pitching better. And he had 5 strikeouts. Albeit he did have 3 walks and 3 hits allowed in this game, and there were a couple of innings where he was pitching out of jams. But hey, he made those pitches to get out of those jams. But there's 2 reasons why him turning things around are so crucial for the Reds, and they're 2 very different reasons. The first one is because the starting pitching staff desperately needs stability out of the top, outside of the top guys. We know that when Chase Burns is pitching, man, the Reds got a real good shot to win. They're 10-4 in his 14 starts. When Andrew Abbott is on the mound, you feel really good about your chances. Nick Lodolo, we still need some evidence there. We still need to see some stuff there. but we know what Nick Lodolo is looking like when he is really going well. So outside of that, until Hunter Green returns, you've got a couple of dudes in Brady Singer and Rhett Lauder who, yeah, they've been okay. I mean, Rhett Lauder had a tough start to the year. He was hurt. He goes on the injury list coming back. He's looking better now. Hopefully he keeps that up. Brady Singer has looked better in his last 5 starts as well. Hopefully he keeps that up. But the strength of this team has always been pitching. Basically, since they were winning the division, I mean, they had a good lineup in 2010 and a pretty good lineup in 2012, but it was always the fact that the pitching was good is what led those teams. And the pitching was the reason that they made the playoffs last year, and the pitching was the reason that we were hoping for a division championship this year. It hadn't been that way. The pitching has been really rough this year. It took a big step back, whether it be injuries or ineffectiveness early on. The Reds' hole that they've dug themselves in is largely because they pitched themselves into that hole. And Brady Singer was a big part of that. There's still people that believe whenever Hunter Green comes back, the obvious move is sending Brady Singer to AAA. Because I do think he has an option. You could actually do that. But the whole point here being, like, Brady Singer turning things around is a huge thing for this pitching staff as a whole. The second reason that this is a massive turnaround is that he needs to be valuable at the trade deadline. And hear me out on this, because I'm starting to see that unless they really do make a big turnaround, we should be talking about the Reds loading up for the next season. Ideally, that's 2027. The CBA is going, CBA negotiations are going to have a lot to say about that. But, for a moment, let's expect that next year happens as it should. The Reds are trending in the direction that this trade deadline should be focused on next year, not this year. And I feel like that's something that Nick Krall has been decent at, or at least the front office that he has been a part of these last decade or so has been decent at. Whenever they recognize that this season isn't the season and they pivot toward, okay, but we can reload for next year, then they've done a decent job at that. Brady Singer will be a perfect candidate to be sent off in a trade at the deadline that makes you better for next year. Brings back somebody who helps in a big way for 2027. The only way he does that, though, is if he continues this turnaround. Because, quite frankly, if I'm an opposing team and Nick Krall is calling me and saying, we got this starting pitcher that's available for you, they're like, yeah, we'll give you a prospect. It's probably down in AA or something. And it's going to be a guy that's not going to be valuable to you for at least 3 or 4 years. That's probably what they're looking at if they're offering Brady Singer up in a trade. Now, maybe that gets a little bit better with, the demand of the trade market, but I don't think that Brady Singer is bringing back a guy who helps you out next year, whether that's a relief pitcher, whether that's an outfielder, whatever that might be. So he's got to keep pitching well. And I think to really hit home the goal that Brady Singer has to hit to be as valuable for either one of these reasons that as the Reds need him to be, he's got to consistently get back to pitching 6 innings. Because while 5 innings is nice, and that's kind of how the game has moved here recently when it comes to starting pitchers, the real value from Brady Singer is not the fact that he's striking out a ton of people or he's got an ERA that's minuscule or something like that, that ideally he would get down to, because right now 5.32 is not a good ERA. But it's the fact that he can give you the longevity every 5th day out. He's not gone deeper into a ball game this season than 6 innings. And he's only gone 6 innings 4 times. Last season, Brady Singer had 16 starts of 6 innings or more, and he had 4 starts that went more than 6 innings. So as it stands right now, he's taken a step back in just the longevity and the innings and the the ability to take pressure off the bullpen, to say nothing of the fact that his ERA is high and his walk rate was high, or his walk rate wasn't bad, but his hard hit rate was high and all that other stuff. As the improvements come in and as the turnaround continues for him, longevity in each game has to be a focus. And until that really turns around, reasons 1 and 2 will be distant goals rather than achievements for Brady Singer. But the turnaround is happening right now before us, and hopefully we can start to see that longevity come in on a consistent basis. Coming up next, Tejay Antone is better than you think. Baseball players are known for their routines, whether it's a lucky jersey, a pregame ritual, or sticking to the same preparation every day. Consistency matters. And when it comes to hair thinning, there can be a lot of products out there that make promises, but not always a lot of confidence behind them. That's why more people are looking for solutions backed by real science and trusted experts like Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand and the official hair growth partner of Major League Baseball. What really makes Nutrafol stand out is that it's not this one-size-fits-all approach. It's designed to fit into your routine while addressing the root causes of thinning with personalized solutions. Find out why Nutrafol is the only hair growth supplement brand trusted by Major League Baseball. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONMLB over at Nutrafol.com to get $10 off your first month's subscription. As the season rolls along, and hey, we got World Cup soccer going on as well, you've got to go check out FanDuel right now. They've got the Every Goal Pays promotion that if you place a wager on a World Cup game, the goals scored by both sides in that World Cup game each pay out bonus bets every time they go in. You can use those bonus bets on a bunch of different MLB bets. In fact, I'm looking right now at the NL Central Division because the Milwaukee Brewers are heavily favored to repeat as division title winners. Surprise, because they've played amazingly so far this season. They're at minus 450 to win the division. Then you have the Chicago Cubs at 8-1. Cincinnati Reds all the way down to 33-1. They came into this season with division aspirations, and FanDuel, well, they're kind of laughing at that. So check out FanDuel right now if you want to go look at the Every Goal Pays promotion for your World Cup wagers, or there's so many Major League Baseball wagers to get into every single day. That's all over at FanDuel.com. I invite you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow me on X or on TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can follow Steve at S. Offenbaker over on X. That's with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. That's on any social media platform out there. All right, Tejay Antone is better than you think because he's better than I thought. I have been very happy to see Tejay Antone at the major league level making a difference, and we all know that his story is awesome, and it's not one that we're soon going to forget. But let's look past the story for a moment, and let's see the fact that he's actually pitching pretty well. He's a guy right now that, I mean, according to the peripherals and the things that I like to look at over on Baseball Savant that helps me understand the entire picture for Tejay Antone, if he continues to throw more innings, he's going to qualify for some really interesting stuff because Tejay Antone is going to rank as one of the best ground ball pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's going to rank as one of the better pitchers at getting hitters to chase pitches outside the zone. He's also going to rank as one of the better pitchers at limiting walks. And he's going to rank as one of the more solid pitchers at limiting hard contact. He's not like elite in that category, but he's better than average. He has had a very nice season to this point. We're talking about a dude that is doing an amazing job of limiting walks. League average for walk percentage is 8.4%. He's at 5.7%. Now, if he could couple that with a little bit of a higher strikeout rate, because his strikeout rate is kind of below league average right now, but if he can tick that up a little bit, then we're talking about a dude that is just an asset in the bullpen. And this is amazing, like thinking of the fact like Tejay Antone back in 2024 was a different pitcher. 2024, he threw his four-seam fastball most of the time, and that averaged almost 94 miles an hour, and that was 2024. Remember him when he was like the closer, he was hitting 96, 97 on that fastball. That's not necessarily where he's at. Although his four-seamer still averages about 95, he's barely thrown it. He only throws it like 7% of the time. Back in 2024, at least according to Baseball Savant, he threw it 36% of the time. So it's a huge drop. I think he's really doing that when he wants to rear back and just fire one across to remind guys, hey, I can still hit that velo. But his main pitch is the sweeper, because Captain Hook is actually sweeping up the competition these days. His sweeper right now has a batting average against of a .138, and he hasn't allowed an extra base hit when throwing that pitch. Hitters also swing and miss 29% of the time that he throws it. And like I mentioned, he throws it a lot. According to StatCast, he has thrown it a total of 125 times this season. 29% of that has just been whiffing, not even touching it. And then he adds on top of that sweeper a cutter. And this is really where the ground balls come from. He cuts things down to the ground with this pitch. Now it only averages 90. It's not like it's a burner. This isn't Graham Ashcraft's cutter. But at 90 miles an hour, he is actually elite at getting a guy to put the ball on the ground with this pitch, because the average launch angle, so like the typical launch angle when it makes contact with an opponent's bat, is -2 degrees. So on average, that ball is hitting the ground if they're making contact with it at all. Now, it does have a 19% swing and miss rate, but the key with this, and when you put the cutter with the sweeper, when you put them both together, that's 60% of the outs that he is making is coming with both of these pitches. He has a 6-pitch mix, though. We're not talking about he only throws 2 pitches. He also throws his curveball. It's not as awesome as it used to be. He's only got a whiff rate of 11%. His curveball in years past, we know, was an absolute it was magic. It's still decent, but his sweeper is the magic pitch now. But he only throws his curveball about 14% of the time. He's got a four-seamer that I mentioned he only throws 7% of the time now. A sinking fastball, two-seam fastball, sinker, whatever you want to call it, that he throws 5% of the time. And he's thrown 7 total sliders this year. Now, I've talked to some different pitchers and things like this, what the difference between a sweeper and a slider is. A sweeper just has more break. It just kind of goes further. So sometimes he dials that back a little bit, throws a slider, which is in between a cutter and a sweeper, because a cutter still has, that glove side motion to it as he throws it. So your sweeper, your cutter, your slider all have glove side motions to it. It's just to what degree they go. But the fact that he's able to mix those up so well and get the outs that he gets is fantastic. He's not giving up a ton of hard contact either, like I mentioned. When he throws the ball in the strike zone and guys are actually making contact with it, they're putting the ball on the ground. And I think that this is key, because this bullpen has needed somebody to step up. And I keep begging Zach Maxwell to be that guy, and it just doesn't feel like he's going to do that. But the good news is Tony Santillan has really calmed down lately. We're now on to 5 straight appearances of not allowing a run. In this most recent appearance, this save against the Mets on Tuesday night, he had a pair of strikeouts, and he allowed a hit, which if you look at the box score, it says, Tony Santillan allowed a hit. What happened was Juan Soto hit the most ridiculous bouncer into the dirt that stopped in the grass. Tony Santillan picked it up. He was right on first base line. And when he looked up to throw, he saw Juan Soto's back in front of him. So he was trying to figure out a way to throw it past. He couldn't. He hits Juan Soto in the back, and they give him a hit. That was it. That was the base runner that he allowed. Everything else was dominant. 2 strikeouts. ground balls. Tony Santillan looked good. But Antone is also stepping up into a larger role here. I think right now you can kind of line this bullpen up in that Tony Santillan's your 9th inning guy and Tejay Antone's your 8th inning guy. And if Tony Santillan goes back to the way he was in May, then just put Tejay Antone in the 9th inning and do whatever you need to with Tony Santillan. Because the way that Tejay Antone is pitching right now, it's not just a story anymore. It's not just, boy, look at the fact that he came back from a 3rd Tommy John and he's throwing pitches in the major leagues. Ain't that swell? It's a lot more than that. He's pitching good. The question is, will he hold up? I'm going to talk with Steve tomorrow about that a little bit more because it's interesting. As much of an asset as Tejay Antone has been this season, I also did not expect him to pitch this much. And Steve and I will talk about that on tomorrow's Lockdown Reds podcast. And hopefully we'll be talking about a series sweep as well. That'd be a lot of fun. But thanks for tuning in to today's Lockdown Reds. Make sure that you subscribe right here on YouTube. Subscribe on your favorite audio platform. Take us with you. If you can't watch us on YouTube, we're on every single audio platform out there. Also, make sure you check out the Lockdown Reds Everydayer Club. Like I mentioned, link is down in the description below. And I appreciate you for making us part of your day, for being an everydayer, making us your first listen, all that great stuff. If we're down at the ballpark, absolutely please come up and say hi. I always love talking baseball with everyone. Definitely want to talk baseball with you. But that'll do it for us here today. Now make sure you go check out Locked On MLB. We got 3 different shows covering the league, whether it's Sully, whether it's MLB Game Night, watching every game every night, or at least for the rest of this week on MLB or on Back to the Bullpen. I am filling in for Brett Chansey, so me and Mike Stanton are talking about the league as a whole. Actually had a fun show talking about the Cubs and can the Cubs get back into the NL Central race after apparently they found their leadoff hitter in Pete Crow Armstrong. There's some more obstacles for them to figure out. We also talk about the Giants being sellers at the trade deadline and an interesting story that Mike Stanton had about being ejected for throwing a pitch that hit Eric Davis. I want to check out Back to the Bullpen over on Locked On MLB. But until next time, you know that Steve and Tim Daniel on the postcast and myself will be Locked On Reds every single day.